Hey everyone, Frank and I just got done recording an episode about us talking about our preparations for some upcoming matches this weekend. I'm going to be competing at the tactical games, and Frank's going to be competing at Area 8. But I wanted to take this time for us to announce the official schedule for the Marine Corps marksmanship competitions for the Competition in Arms program. So we're going to be starting out with the National Capital Region here at Quantico from October 23rd to 4 November. And then going into Okinawa, it's going to be December 5th to the 16th, taking a short break for the holidays. And then we're going to jump right into Pacific, which is out in Hawaii, which is going to be January 23rd to February 3rd. After that, we're heading out to Camp Pendleton for McMick West, which is going to be 13 February to 24 February. And then we're going to finish it off with East from 6 March to 17 March. After that, it's going to be Marine Corps Championships from 28 March to 7 April. So I hope all of you are able to attend. I think you're going to have a really good time out there. There's been some talks about minimizing bullseye period from the matches. So you can expect an action-packed match where you're not just getting match time, on the clock, but you're getting some really good critical training that's going to help develop your skills from the Marine Corps shooting team. Frank, I got to ask you, obviously I'm probably not going to be competing at all since I'll be, you know, hopefully in a new job. But are you planning on competing at NCR this year?
If my schedule works out, I got classes on Mondays and Tuesdays, so it'd be me working with the team to see if they can work around that schedule. But yes, I would love to come out and compete. The Mics are a great time. Quick note for you listeners, like you know the schedule right now. Start selling these things to your commands. Get with your OICs and your staff and COICs. Tell them the benefits of attending, getting your quals, getting good training, and yes, start selling that. And also pull your weapons out of the armory, get in good with those guys, get in good with the S4 and the armors, and start dry firing.
And I got to add something to this. So from a recruiting aspect from the teams, like this is one of our major recruiting sources. For those of you who constantly message the teams and are like, I want to be a part of the team, I want to be a part of the team. And then we ask you, do you have any competitive shooting experience? And you're like, no. Typically the answer is going to be no, just because we have nothing to go off of. We are the Marine Corps shooting team. Like we shoot guns. Like we compete in competitions with guns. We don't just do square bay training. Like by you telling me I just train in a square bay and everything, that doesn't tell me anything. I need to see some kind of data-driven results. That's the important factor. So by you coming out there and putting everything on the line and competing at one of these events, um, you can almost guarantee yourself a way onto the team if you perform, but you have to perform.
Yeah, two things of note. If you go to a USPSA or three gun match, even if you get your shit pushed in, you're still you're still ahead of the curve because everyone that most of the folks that show up to the MIC, that's going to be their first exposure to competitive shooting. You already got to look at it and you already have some identified some things that you need to work on. And second, you don't necessarily need to show up in medal. You just have to show that you're of good character, that you have a good work ethic. I watched Sam Nelson plug two no shoots at 2021 McEast, and he did not medal, but he is on the team now by virtue of how much work he put in dry firing, his consistent match records, and he's running social media. He basically set up all the training on Bay One on Saturday. Like I fell in with his training plan. So that is what is more important than it still helps to medal. It'll catch the team's attention, but those things are important too.
I got to throw something else out there. Just because it came up in conversation with a couple people this week, and it's kind of been ongoing over my time on the team. And this is kind of geared toward a lot of the senior enlisted guys who want to come out to the team. the team is not some place to kind of just come and retire at. It is not that Twilight Tour that it is not fair for it to be a Twilight Tour. Some people say, "Oh, well, you're retiring from the team," but the thing is I did not intend on retiring out of the team. Two, I put in a lot of work in building that program to where it is now. And it just wasn't me who built it up, it was everybody on the team. But we have gotten requests for people to come to the team. And they're like, oh, well, I want this to be my Twilight Tour. I'm going to tell you right now, that's not the way to come to the team. And that's not the mindset to have. You can't just do it so you can boost your own shooting career or your prospects for a future career. You have to put in the work, because when you come in with the expectation of it being a Twilight Tour, that just tells me that you just want to shoot and you don't want to put the work in. So come with the expectation that you're going to be putting in the work to make the place better.
I would add the same thing for the officer side. I wanted to come to the team, but I understood that I would be coming because I understand competitive shooting and I'd be serving the Marines. Um, if you come to the team, you're in charge of Marines that legitimately want to be there, that were hand selected to be there, and that are trying to push the boundaries of competitive marksmanship as far as they can possibly go within the 3 years that they are there. So the last thing they need is a staff NCO who's just looking at retirement, or for him or herself, or for an officer looking through the same lens.
Yeah. So I know it's kind of different, something that we haven't really gotten in depth with, but it just kind of something I felt compelled to say. Um, but we really hope you do enjoy this episode. It's going to be a good weekend for the both of us. I'm really looking to see how the results turn out for both you, Frank, and for myself. Hopefully I can walk on Monday. But no, we really hope you enjoy this and let us know what you think.
Yep.
Thanks.
Give me a nod when you're ready. Shooter's ready. Stand by.
Hi, everybody. On this episode of 3GIQ, Matt and I are going to talk about some upcoming matches that we are going to be attending. So it's going to be in two parts. The first part of the recording is us talking about the preparations and the planning that go into attending some. So Matt is about to go compete in the Tactical Games team event. He's competing with Andy Brown, who's on a previous episode, and I'm about to go compete in Area 8 USPSA. So we will start with Matt and talk about his preparations for the Tactical Games team event. So first question is, how did your experience last year inform your preparations this year, Matt?
So based on the style of shooting, I knew it wasn't going to be as, I guess, dynamic as I was hoping it would be last year, but just because it wasn't as dynamic as what I'm used to, it didn't mean that it wasn't fun. So I knew that I didn't have to worry about moving and shooting, anything like that. It was very fundamental base type shooting, making your hits count. Everything is more Virginia count, which is, every bullet counts. There's no makeup shots. You have to make everything count. So it's kind of informed me on that, to focus on the accuracy side of things. And then, preparing for the unexpected. Last year I kind of just went. I didn't really prepare at all. It was just like, oh, I'm just going to show up. I just want to have fun. And there were times I thought I was going to die, most notably on the run, because it was 5 miles long last year. So, taking that into account, the weights, the style of lifting and the implements that were used really inform me on what I had to purchase myself because I don't like going to a gym. I have everything at the house. So if I can just have everything here and prepare here and not go anywhere, then I'm going to do that. And it's just going to allow me to continue using it year after year after year in order to prepare as long as I continue doing these events. So that's how it really informed me to really just focus on the stuff that I need to get to my house so I can uh, prepare.
Yeah, a couple follow-up questions. And one of the benefits of us going through COVID from 2020, 2022 is I built up a pretty good home gym. And I imagine you have a pretty decent home gym as well.
Yep.
What are some of the implements that you felt you wanted more experience on this time around that you like targeted first in terms of purchases?
Sandbags. Sandbags is one of the biggest ones. Last year I didn't practice anything with sandbags, and most people are like, "Oh, sandbags, no big deal." Well, let me tell you, they're using 150 pound sandbags that you're having to pick up and throw over a yoke. If I could buy a yoke, I would, but I'm not going to spend that kind of money on that. I can do other things that are going to be just as good. I have the barbell, so okay, I'm gonna do 100-yard lunges with 135 pounds on the bar. That's more than enough than what I'm gonna have to use on that yoke. Um, not that you're lunging with a yoke, but you're just doing a much harder exercise. I had a sled, bought a sled last year, and so I did a lot of focus on a sled. Thought I was going to die this weekend when I was training because I decided to do a 200-yard sled pull with 140 pounds on the sled going downhill first and then coming back uphill. Did not feel good. Um, let's see. I would say those are some of the implements that I wanted to kind of focus on the most. I didn't want to get like one of the what is it, the farmer carry bars or whatever it was,
Yeah,
the axle bar, that
yeah.
stuff. I didn't necessarily need that. A regular barbell would be sufficient, but it was really just the sandbags.
Okay. And the sandbags, from my numerous experiences with them, a lot of it's about technique and
Yep.
different from when you're slick to when you're wearing a plate carrier. If you're not careful, you may yeet your front plate up into your chin. That's definitely happened to me before. In any of your exercises, did you run with your rifle and pistol, or has it just been the plate carrier?
So for the most part, it's been with just the plate carrier, but in order to prepare, like I went to my neighbor's property. He has about 130 acres, and we can shoot out to 700 yards on his property. So what I did is I would go back to his property since there's like real bad unimproved trails there and just uneven terrain. Um, and I would go run with my plate carrier and pistol belt on. I didn't run with the rifle, um, but I did run at least with the pistol. And then as one of my active recovery workouts, what I would do is I would hike for about 3.5 hours or 3.5 miles with a 75 pound sandbag on my back, with the full kit, just going down the road and back, and I would try and keep it under an hour.
Nice. Yeah, sounds like you've been putting the work in. When did you start like preparing in earnest for this event?
Realistically, about 2 months ago. As everybody knows already that listens to this, I have been preparing to get out of the Marine Corps, so I've really had to manage my priorities. So while still going to work at the time, I wasn't putting a whole lot of attention onto the physicality that I've been training to recently, just because I've had to focus on like getting out of the Marine Corps, looking for a job, stuff like that, and I feel like I'm much better prepared like getting out of the Marine Corps than I was, prior to starting this. Um, but the past 2 months I've dedicated a lot of time to working out once, twice, sometimes 3 times a day, just in preparation. Even if it's like a 5, 10 minute workout, I'm still just going out there and getting at it.
Yeah, doing something is better than doing nothing. Yeah, I can attest to how busy you've been. I think around the time that I joined this podcast, you were telling me that you wanted to go shoot the Ohio Tactical Games. And then we realized that you had so much stuff going on. And then, you and Andy decided to go shoot this match. So I'm glad that you're finally getting out there. Um, do you think, how do you feel going into this weekend, just physically?
Physically, I feel ready. I want to get in at least two more workouts, nothing too strenuous, but just something to kind of keep the body moving. So later today, which it's, August 24th. So I plan on at least going out for a 1 mile flat run. One of the things Andy and I discussed as we were talking about our plate carriers, and we just felt that they bounced around a lot. And we're both using RX Plus plates. And they're really thin. So it doesn't take up much room in the plate carrier. So I had foam pads that I got whenever I purchased the plate carrier. So I just threw them in there. That way there's more cushion between the plate and my body, and it just takes up more space to where the plate carrier doesn't jump around. So probably going to go for a mile long run, maybe mile and a half. We'll see how I feel, just to get out there and keep everything going. And then I may just go into doing some light lifts with the plate carrier, just to kind of feel how it is with the foam pads in there as well.
Okay. Yeah, great. The gear is definitely you and I both saw a lot of people's gear fail at
Mm-hmm.
last team event. Play carriers, people sling setups, like unless you're actually going out there. And it's good. It's good that you went out there with your battle belt and everything else and the plates and that you're working all that. Since you and Andy don't live close together, there are some events in which you were going to have to carry him, he's going to have to carry you. Is that something that you guys are going to briefly like walk through when you guys get to the event?
Yeah, I would say like we kind of got a description of what the events were. But I got to actually be there on the ground to really envision exactly how it's going to look. Uh, but with Andy and I, been doing the competition game, and knowing how to game things, knowing how to break things down, and knowing how to envision it on the ground, we'll be able to come up with a pretty solid game plan whenever we're there on who's going to carry what and who's going to do what work. Um, but I think we're going to be around the same relative physical state this weekend.
Yeah, that's great. How often do you guys talk?
We message each other just about every single day. Um, you know, One thing I noticed that I needed to do is to keep myself honest. And the way I would keep myself honest is whatever exercises I was doing that day, as soon as I got done with them, I would send him a text exactly what I did. And we would talk about it, whether it was through text or on the phone, like just talking to each other. And he would do the same. It's just I found that's how I kind of kept myself honest, and I started doing that with one of the other guys on the shooting team, Lieutenant Bodziak. He's a big gym buff too, and so I would just send him different workouts. Like during the CrossFit Games, I went onto the CrossFit Games app. I was like, okay, events 1 through 10. I would take screenshots of them, like I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, and I would scale them just because I'm not a fucking elite CrossFit athlete or anything like that. So I would scale them, and I would go out and do it, and I would keep track of what I was doing, how I did all that, how did I feel during the whole thing. And as time progressed, because one of the biggest things I would say was my weakest point, from the start of my training is my engine. I didn't have the endurance that I wanted to. So I did a lot of focus on building that engine up between just not taking a break between each exercise and just going from exercise to exercise to exercise. And same thing with the run, just increasing those distances, doing what I had to do there.
Yeah, work capacity is very important during the games. Yeah, you just want to finish faster than everyone else, and it's a good feeling when you are the fastest team finishing your heat, and you can just watch everyone else. They're going to be tired for longer, and it's always nice to be the first one done. Um, so when Jared and I prepared, we did the same thing a lot of the time, but him and I are built differently and we have different strengths. So did you and Andy mostly do a lot of the same workouts, or was there understanding between you? Like Jared knew that I knew I had to work on my endurance on longer runs. Jared knew that he had to do some more work in terms of picking up heavy implements. Um, how would you characterize your guys' strengths, and how did you cater the preparations to those?
So I think what we did a lot of, so I did a lot of focus on the running. Like last year, I think I already said it. I about died on the run, and it's the thing I dreaded the most. I did a lot of specific, I did a lot of focus on running this year, but I also did a lot of focus on the Olympic lifting, high volume workouts. And I would say it was much of the same with Andy, just volume and movement, building that engine. And him and I are one good thing about Andy and I is we're about the same height. We're roughly around the same weight. So we're gonna go in with that advantage. Last year, I did. My teammate was Bob Minert, and I want to say Bob is 6'2", 6'3", and then you have me who's like 5'6". Our team name last year was Pints and Pilsners. So I'm going in with a little bit more of an advantage having somebody who's scaled similarly to me.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Can you talk a little bit about your preparations logistically? How are you all structuring your travel to Panthera the night before, where you're staying, meals, recovery stuff that you're bringing in order to ensure that you're going to be successful in this 2-day event?
All right, so both Andy and I are leaving to the hotel tomorrow. So tomorrow's Thursday. The match doesn't start until Saturday. Um, he's coming from Indiana. I'm only 2.5 hours away. But I got the hotel room. So we're gonna meet up tomorrow at the hotel room. Just hang out, catch up. I haven't seen Andy since 2019. And essentially, he's got his ammo, I got my ammo. I'm gonna bring a cooler, an 85 quart cooler, fill it with ice. And I'm gonna make sure I have protein shakes for in between each battle so I can get the muscle recovery that I need, and the nutrients that I need. And then I'm probably gonna bring, have like grilled chicken, like have something like salad, something, fruits, nuts, things that are going to promote high energy and muscle rebuilding during the event. So uh and I'm trying to be really smart about it because I'm not the smartest whenever it comes to that. I do tend to not take care of my body, not hydrate properly, and not eat properly during any type of matches. And I want to say it was back in 2015. I was at infantry unit leaders course, and you know, it was 12 to 14 hours. We were doing our initial instructor pre-assessment. It was a 12-hour assessment. It was probably in the 40s whenever we got dropped off in the middle of the night. And then by the afternoon, it was in the 80s. I didn't eat or drink anything all day, and we covered over 15 miles easily, running with full kit and pack. Uh, I got rhabdo that night. I should have gone to the hospital. I did not go to the hospital. I suffered through the entire event on my own. My wife was like, go to the hospital. I was like, fuck that. No, I'm not getting dropped from this course. But that was a situation I put myself in. I am not looking to do that to myself here. So it's a matter of getting my body the fuel that it needs in order to perform at a high level the entire weekend.
Yeah, and I would say having done several of these, it's sometimes it gets to the point where eating feels like a chore.
Yes.
The stuff you're bringing it's smart, right? It's smart choices you're making for your body, but it also means that sometimes after a battle, you don't necessarily want to put more food inside yourself, but you're going to be thankful for that once you hit the next battle, which is 2 or 3 hours away.
Yep.
You just have to be consistently munching all day. So yeah, no, because sounds like you guys make good preparations. Another thing I would add too is I always advocate if you're traveling out of state, even if it's a major match, if it's a large, like anything beyond the local match, I think it makes sense to go see the range early.
Yep. And so that's something we're going to be doing on Friday. I know range check-in is like from 5 in the afternoon to 7 in the evening, something or sometime around there.
Yeah.
But we're probably going to show up a little bit earlier, look at the grounds. Like, I don't know if they're necessarily going to have everything put in place. They may still be trying to figure out how they're going to do certain things, but it at least gives us an idea of what we're looking at doing. It's smart, and we have all day to do that. And then, it's back to hanging out.
Yeah. A lot of guys show up because they're flying in and everything. They show up early and just to confirm zero. But getting there the day before and taking care of all that check-in business means that you don't have to deal with it the morning of, which is already going to be early morning. But most people wait till the morning of to get a first look at the range and check in. I mean, that's when I met you last year.
Yep.
It was the day up, and I just came up behind you. I was like, "Hey, man, how's it going?" And I could tell that your mind was elsewhere because there was a lot that you had to get done.
Yep.
It wasn't until later that we can kind of settle down and actually chat, catch up.
Yeah,
So
I was kind of freaking out. I was like, where do I go? What do I do? Like, I never been there. And my whole intention last year was to get there early. But last year I kind of went into everything a little bit unprepared. Like, I took the muzzle brake off my rifle the day before the match and put a bird cage on. And then I only zeroed at 50 yards last year on sat range because we didn't, I went into last year almost completely unprepared. And so I got out of work late. I had to, even though I got the reps in on the rifle at the range and everything, I still had other duties, so I got out of there late. By the time I left work, I had to go straight to the hotel, and by that time it was already getting dark. And so I was like, I just I just screwed myself here. So like that next day, you're absolutely right. I was flustered. I was trying to figure out where to park, and then, you came up to me. I was like, trying to talk, but at the same time, like figure out where do I go. Then Pim came up to me. He was like, gun lock. I was like,
that's it. Yes.
Pim? I was like it was, I hadn't felt that in so long. It was like I was brand new to everything. But I know what to expect this year, which is kind of why, me and Andy are doing everything that we're doing this year in order to get the best results. I mean, shoot, we're even sleeping at the hotel on Sunday night. We could easily go home, but I don't want to do a 2.5 hour drive after 2 days of hard physical labor.
And
I,
yeah, I would also say mentally knowing that you have a long drive at the
Mhm.
end of the day of a match means that your mind in some way is like segmented, worrying about that, like staying up and like, oh, I'm gonna get home late, try not to wake up my family and all that stuff.
Yep.
You don't have to worry about any of that. And
Yeah. I mean, shoot, last year, you got home at like what, 3, 4 in the morning?
it was so gross. Yeah, we drove from Panthera all the way back to Lejeune. This was back when I lived by myself, but I had to drop off Jared on base and then I had to go home and I think I still showed up to work on time because someone I'm a dumbass. Like it just doesn't make it. But a lot of what you described, man, like on that first day that you showed up at the range, are precisely reasons why. Like your anxiety is already going to. You're already going to be pretty anxious because there's the expectation of performance. You want to do well. You hope things go well. Um, and if you can minimize some of those external factors by just getting a lay of the lands and making yourself a little bit comfortable before game day, I think it's absolutely worth it.
Mhm.
So it's
Yeah.
good. It's good that you guys are doing it. And for Andy, like you know what the range looks like, but Andy doesn't.
Yeah.
So it's good. It's good for him to see it. Last question I'll ask is what are you most nervous about going into this weekend, and what are you most excited about?
So honestly, I will still say I am most nervous about the run. Um, just because I haven't been running with the rifle on my back, all that, so they say it's going to be 3-ish miles. I was talking to a friend of mine, Carla Herzig, and I was like, so do you think it'll still be like three? You think the 3-ish is going to actually be more closer to three? And she's like, would it be better if I just told you it was 10 miles? That way you were freaking out all week. I was like, don't you dare put that evil on me. So I just, I fucking hate running. And like, I was talking to Carla about this. I was like, there was one instance where the, there's a couple instances where I know people had to, and I think everything back into a tactical mindset. So you have to bear with me in my mindset of thinking like operational type environments where I could only think of a couple instances where people had to run 3 miles out to an extract point because they were compromised in the hide that they were in. So I I don't think running any further than 3 miles is realistic in a tactical setting. And I do understand that this is just a game. I get that, but my mind still reverts back to, if this was anything close to real life, this part right here is unrealistic. Like combat, it's all about moving from point A to point B as a group, and you're all going to be, you're sprinting house to house. Combat, for me was sprints, going from one house to the next house to the next house and clearing and taking breaks when you had to. Um, it wasn't this long distance event. That's just my take on it. I hate running now, but I still, I started doing it again. We'll see if I continue it. Uh, but kind of going into in terms of what am I most stamped up about is El Cartel. Uh, for those who don't know what that was, you started shooting inside a vehicle with the rifles. You had targets, for whenever we shot it, we only had 180 portion of the bay. It wasn't a full 360 like it was supposed to be. Um, but you shot an assortment of targets, rifle and pistol, uh, rifle inside, pistol outside, then went back to the back of the vehicle, shot rifle again. Then you had to run up, get the dummies, put them in the back of the vehicle, the rescue Randys, put them in the back of the vehicle, close the doors, and then freaking jump right back in the vehicle. And that was time. Me and Bob finished that stage and came in third place on that stage. I would like to beat that third place finish and, potentially get a stage win in our division. This year, I think they're going to be doing it in the 360 bay. So that should be really fun.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what changes they've made and make sure to, if you can, get some video of it. I'd like to see what changes they made. Yeah, for the run, I know it's what you're most nervous about.
I wouldn't even say I'm nervous anymore, just because I have been running a lot. Like I've been doing 3 to 4 runs a week nowadays. But the key that I've figured out, and I've talked to James Gill about it, in depth. Um, my game plan is to be very strict with everything I do. I'm not going to try and go balls to the wall. I'm not going to try and outdo my capabilities. I'm going to find that comfortable pace because I know I can shoot. I know the shooting ability is there. So I'm going to just go in there uh, and have that nice, easy going pace, knowing that I'm not going to be the fastest guy when it comes to the run. But as long as I can maintain a decent speed, I'm going to be good. I got that endurance built up and I got some of my speed back.
Yeah, that's great. Knowing what your strengths are and preserving them, not compromising them just to gain a few seconds somewhere else is definitely a smart move. What I was
And
gonna say is,
I meant to hit this point with that statement, knowing that you don't want to go balls to the wall because you have like 3 or 4 other events throughout the rest of the day. That's key. Like, don't gas yourself out just on one event. Maintain your composure through every event. That way you can get through everything without dying.
yeah, and it's important to know in this particular iteration, they do have a floater event.
Hmm.
Technically, it's 7 stages. Like you might call the floater event a mini stage, but it's still another it's still another physical obstacle that you've got to overcome.
Shoot, there's 8 events the whole weekend.
There's 8.
Yeah, and
There's
that's including the floater.
Oh wow. Man, they really turned it up. That's great. You guys are gonna get your money's worth.
Hmm.
3 miles through those hills, it's gonna be probably feel more like 3.5. Um, and honestly, as long as you follow the sprinkler flags and don't take any wrong turns, it will stay at 3.5 to 3 miles.
Hmm. Yeah, so I think they're probably shutting down the Long Bay to do El Cartel. And then they're gonna, you know,
Okay.
open just briefly, quickly looking through this because last year it got shut down in the 360 bay because the Long Bay was within the SDZ
Yep.
or the 360 bay was within the SDZ of the Long Bay.
Yep. I do remember that. But all right, is there anything else you want to talk about in terms of your preparations for this weekend?
No, I think that kind of covers it all. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be
Yeah,
fun. So now it's my turn to kind of ask you some things. Um
do it.
so you're going to be shooting area 8 this weekend. And we're actually not going to be that too far apart in terms of location. You're going to be at Shadowhawk Defense. I'm going to be at Panthera. So we'll probably get together at some point. But you've shot a string of major matches and you finished at a relatively high level. Coming off those highs, how do you feel going into Area 8 this weekend?
I feel pretty good right now. Coming out of Ohio, I so shout out to Sergeant Cardenas. He won Ohio or Battle for the North Coast. So that's the second major that he's won, carry optics, which is great for him. I came in at about 87% of him at Ohio. I've I've been struggling with some inconsistency throughout the season, and I think I'm finally starting to hit my stride. Made some changes midway, and those are starting to pay off. I feel pretty confident going into this weekend, and I think that's very important, regardless of what match you're shooting. And I think it's coming at a good time because I'm within 2 weeks of nationals as well. So I feeling like I'm on the upslope is definitely it's definitely a good mentality to have going into the weekend.
Nice. Now I'm really excited to see how it all comes out for you. How many people are shooting in your division?
Huh. Hold on, let me look that up. Carry optics has just been to give some perspective. Carry optics has like 440 shooters for nationals.
Oh shit, that's a lot.
It is quite. And peanut, chill. Sorry, dog. Give me a second. But let me try to find how many match breakdown. Carry optics has 164 shooters in carry optics.
Okay, so that's pretty high number. It's an area match.
It's
And in terms of like Marine Corps, for those looking at national level points, that fits the criteria as the MAR admin and the order state, it has 150 more than 150 people within the division. So you shoot within that top 15%, you're going to be coming out of there with a medal.
Yeah, that's always the goal. I shot within the top 15% at Maryland State. I shot within top 15% this last weekend at Battle for the North Coast. Um, I I just need a couple points to distinguish out in pistol. So that's something I'm continually striving for.
Nice. So you've been shooting and training with the team since you moved up to this area. Have you noticed any positives, and have there been any negatives or obstacles that you're finding yourself to overcome?
Yeah, so that's been interesting shooting with a team. I'm not part of the team, but I've shot every single one of their major matches after like from Western PA all the way to now. And usually I'll go to a major and sometimes I'll squad with people I've never met before. And sometimes I'll have one or two people on my squad that I know. At Area 5, it was an all Marine squad. Like everybody, it was all the pistol team, and then we had Tyler Lindsay come out and shoot with us. So it was kind of nice to know everyone on the squad, but also there's some dynamics of shooting with like an actual team and having teammates. And some of the positives I would say are knowing each other very well, knowing each other's tendencies, and being able to like coach each other through things. So I very much appreciate the team approach to like stage planning. I will talk with like Sam Nelson. And we'll just look at every part of the stage. He'll ask me what I'm thinking, and if it's deviating from what he's planning on doing, he'll ask me why. There was one stage at Battle for the North Coast where he was like, "I'm gonna hit this port and then this port, and then book it to the other side, like jump outside of the shooting area and run." And I was like, "You might want to rethink that because there's a barrel right there, and it's gonna rob you of all the momentum. You're gonna have to do like a couple side steps before you can start building up to get to that last position." And I think he ended up changing his stage plan because of that. So definitely some positives. On the flip side, just shooting with the incredible talent that's on the pistol team, watching Raider just smash a stage, Cardi smash a stage. Like everybody on there has the capability to go off at any moment. And I would definitely say that like when I was adjusting to shooting on the same squad as those guys, it was easy to focus in on the negatives, right? When you're perpetually 3 to 4 seconds behind those guys and you know that there's something missing from your execution that's causing you to not perform at that level, it's easy to tunnel in on the negatives. And I would say that I got into some pretty negative mindsets at Western PA at Area 5, and I was down in the dumps at the beginning of Battle for the North Coast. Managed to turn it around at the end of it. I was actually surprised. I'm like, oh, I didn't end up shooting that poorly. But I I needed to remind myself, like, hey, you're doing this for fun. Make sure you like bring back some of that excitement, that you want to be here, that you're like making the most of the experience and you're actually enjoying being out here rather than just beating down on yourself for missing a reload or just something arbitrary.
So, one of the things that you recently did was you started occluding your dot. And you started that after you went through the Ben Stager class. How has that solidified and progressed since making that change?
Yeah, so I actually showed up to the Stater class with the dot occluded, and throughout that course, the people who went in there with a clear lens eventually got to the point where they all had tape over their lens. They all occluded their dots. I ran it for Area 5. I ran it for Quantico Shooting Club, and it it forces you to become target focused. And part of that, it's not just staring at the target, it's also picking out specific points on the target. So I would say that detail and specificity in terms of how I attack targets got really good. I took it off most recently for Battle for the North Coast, and I shot I shot my best match the entire summer season. So I think it's helped tremendously. It is a bit of a mental setback. And there's certain stages where I wouldn't quite use it, right? Strong hand and weak hand stages. If you're canting your optic, then there's a possibility that you might not see anything at all because the gun is blocking both eyes. But I'd say it's one of the best like mid-season changes that I've made.
Have the guys on the team started including their dot at all?
I tried to give my dot cover to Sam during Area 5 because he was like, I might as well try it. He has the fire for effect cut on his slide, and his SRO sits so low that the cover doesn't exactly like fit flush. So it actually turned the dot into like 128 MOA dot. It was just
Oh,
yeah. So and he almost ran it, like just sent it. I was like, hey, dude, go to the safe area and just make sure that thing looks okay. And he came back. He's like, there's no way this is happening. Treat did it today. Sergeant Treat did it today. Cardenas asked me about it. It's just like depending on your level of comfort, right? I did it with a few months leading up to nationals to where I knew I had several matches to get used to it. And in the back of my head, it was like at some point I'm gonna have to make a decision. Am I gonna run with this thing during nationals, or I'm going to, take the cover off? I decided to take the cover off this last weekend. Shot great, no issues at all. So I'm just gonna run. It's the way the optic was meant to be used. The occlusion is a great training tool, but once you've learned it, I will still, like when I start shooting open, I'm going to start with the dot occluded. I may still go back to it if I feel like I'm losing that emphasis on target focus. But I think at this stage, I'm ready to leave it behind and run with just the optic at nationals.
so we have a tendency to always take videos of whenever we shoot, whether it's in training or at a match. I noticed some things like I recorded myself like training this weekend for the tactical games, like going from a workout into shooting, and I noticed some inconsistencies in my own abilities. Like I felt like I was going kind of slow, just from the exercise to pulling my pistol out, stuff like that. So it's one thing that I know I have to key in on whenever I'm at the match. In terms of your performance, how has that helped you taking videos and not only you diagnosing your videos, but having other people diagnose it as well?
Tremendously helpful. Nelson and I have been shooting together for a long time. We always, so my last name ends in G, his ends in N, so usually there's few shooters between us. So we usually make a habit of handing each other our phones. Like I'll hand him my phone when I'm on deck, and then when he hands it back to me after I shoot, he hands me his phone, and it's just the way it works out. Um, I when I get back from a match, I will watch the third person and the first person I pull off my like hat mounted camera. And the first time I'm just watching it for editing and just to like enjoy the video and be like, oh, this went well, this is cool, but I don't really do a whole lot of analysis. And then my second watch through is I am specifically looking to annotate things that I didn't like or did not like about my performance. And if there's a trend, then I will pull that off, and that will become the emphasis for next week's dry and live fire training. So throughout, for example, some of the things that I found during the season, my gun was sticking in my holster during draws, and that was causing me to draw a lot more cautiously and draw a lot more slowly, which was causing me to lose time off the bat. So I saw that, and I went back and I spent an entire week just working on getting the draw better, like getting it aggressive. So that's something I went back and did. Also, reloads to the weak side. I realized that I was just kind of like diddy bopping along to the left while I reloaded, and I didn't like that. So I focused on reloading aggressively, and so I could get to the next position faster and start shooting faster. So those were important changes I made in the middle of the season. But it's not just for the gram, guys. Videoing yourself is like after you shoot a stage, you've already forgotten half the things you did because your mind was focusing on the targets and your plan. And you need to go back and you need to watch your footwork and your body positioning. And you need to document like those little seconds that you lost because you overran a position or you did a reload where you weren't supposed to. Pull that stuff out, work on it. Otherwise, you're just repeating the same mistakes every single weekend. Um, this leading up to nationals every week, I was dry firing about 5 times a week, at least 15 minutes, sometimes twice a day. And then I would live fire at least once a week with the team. So that's also helped tremendously.
No, I'm looking forward to see how the results pan out. Um, it'll be good. And like I said, hopefully we can all link up out there. At some point, we're all going to be relatively close.
Yeah.
But yeah, to the listeners, I hope you enjoyed this. We're going to follow this up with a breakdown of what went right and what went wrong over our matches after we finish them up this weekend. Thank you for listening and have a good one.